Hello, everyone. Let's start. I invite all of you in the back to come in the front. We have lots of seats here. It's really good to be back after the summer. I hope you had a nice summer holiday. We still have some seats in the front, so please come. Don't be shy. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thanks to Cloudflight for hosting us today here. Before I introduce myself, I want to know or to get to know you. So please raise your hand if you're here for the first time. Oh, so many people, it's awesome. Please raise your hand if you've been to 5 Technologieplauscherl already. Please keep your hands up if you've been to more than 10 Technologieplauscherl. Okay, maybe 15 Technologieplauscherl. Not so many anymore, but quite a lot. Okay, to all the newbies, look around. The people with their hands still up, okay. They know how Technologieplauscherl works, so if you have any questions, ask them. My name is Daniel. I'm one of the new Technologieplauscherl organizers. And it's my second Technologieplauscherl here, my first time in front of this awesome community. And it's really amazing. Yeah. I think that's it from me. I will hand over the mic to Matthias, who will tell you some things about Cloudflight, and then we will have the first 2 talks, then approximately 45 minutes break with some food and drinks that you've already found. And then we will have another round of 2 more awesome talks. So please enjoy the evening.
Hi, I'm Matthias. I'm really happy to be able to welcome you to Cloudflight today. We do software. If you want to know more, ask Johnny or somebody else with a Cloudflight t-shirt, or me, of course. We're also always happy to host communities and meetups here. So if you have a community or a meetup or you want to start something, feel free to reach out. We can probably host you here, or we can tell you the right people to get to know, and would be awesome if stuff happens and stuff starts up. There's a few housekeeping things that I have to talk about. Number 1, there's toilets. They're right again in the hallway when you came in. If you want to smoke or if you need to smoke, you have to go down to the base entrance again and go out. But please be careful to not close the door behind you, because you will not be able to get in if you close the door and go out. There will also be both a video recording, and there will be people doing photos, taking photos. If you do not want to be on photos, please go to this gentleman over here. He will make sure that your rights are preserved. Yeah, and glad to have you here, and there will be food later, and have fun.
I hope. Does everyone hear me? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So, hello from my side as well to the Technologieplauscherl at Cloudflight. And yeah, I want to talk about a project I've been working on for the last years. My name is John Bosco Rocco. And yeah, I'm going to talk about how to use computer vision for early detection of cerebral palsy for the next 20, 30 minutes. I'd first like to give a short overview about what I'm going to talk about cerebral palsy. It's a movement disorder caused by brain damage, and it's always in the brain, in the cerebellum. And there are 5 different stages of cerebral palsy. Oh,
I just need to make you louder.
okay.
Don't worry.
I wait, I continue?
Yes.
Okay. So actually there are 5 different stages. At the moment you just see this 4. There's still stage 0. Can I talk?
Yes.
Okay. There's still stage 0, which is just a healthy participant. And yeah, and it's always innate, so you're born with the disease, and the problem is it gets worse over time as well. And the different forms of it, there's first of all the spastic syndromes that you can have, where you have stiff and difficult movement and tremors and so on. Then the dyskinetic syndromes, which arise at the basal ganglia. Oh yeah, what I forgot to say, spastic syndromes arise in cortex and are most common as well. And there are the ataxic syndromes, which rise in the cerebellum. And of course, since you never know where the disease is, there are also mixed forms of it. So you can have all 3 at the same time as well, which is the worst case. And so as you can see, the 4 stages, there's hypertonia, contractures, bony deformity, decompensation, where you need crutches as well. And the best way of thinking of it is maybe when you're born with it and you have steady muscle contractions, so hard muscle contractions that you can't flex your muscle anymore, and you're growing over time, the bones deform, and as soon as a bone is deformed, you can't get back to the same state as well anymore. And that's why it's important to find out that the child has the cerebral palsy, and that the physician can apply some measures against that. And at the bottom, you can see these 4 measures. So at the beginning, if you're on stage 1, you just do some tone management. And from stage 2 already, you need surgeries. And it always depends, yes, how high it is, the more severe and invasive the surgeries are as well. Yeah, and how we detect this is done by the 3-dimensional gait analysis method, which exists since 45 years approximately. And you need to go to a gait laboratory. You get these markers on your body, and maybe you can notice here, this is the lower extremities, reconstructed through multiple cameras, and the markers that are applied at the joints. And at the beginning, you got Lissajous figures, that's how they're called, from different planes. So this is just the side plane, then the front plane, and the top plane when looking from the top on the person. And with these figures, physicians try to figure out if a person had cerebral palsy. Yeah. So it developed, of course. They had multiple cameras again, with markers as well. Then you had to do some measurements, some data processing, and you got some kinematic graphs, which were no more the Lissajous figures that I showed before. And I'm going to show more of those images later as well. And the expert is a physician in this case, and he creates a report telling you what for gait parameters the person has, and how high the stage is of the cerebral palsy already. Yeah, then there are some newer methods that were developed. So in this case, they used a smartphone camera to record the person while walking. Then you used that information as input of a machine learning model in some pose estimation models. So you got these key points, and those key points were then stuck into another machine learning model and created a report on what was the level of cerebral palsy again, and gave out some more parameters. So my idea was to, is to create some markerless models, or a markerless system. So this is the marker-based. And the problem about the marker-based system is that you need to apply it, and this takes 1 to 2 hours. So you can't measure that many people at the same time during this process. And the whole system is expensive, since you need a lot of physicians, markers, and a lot of cameras as well. Yeah. So then my first steps were to find some papers, of course, read into this topic. And I've actually found one, which is called Deep Neural Networks Enable Quantitative Movement Analysis Using Single Camera Videos. And they actually used a smartphone camera, so it was quite similar to what I planned to do. And used OpenPose, which was, to that time, the best working pose detection algorithm. And the good thing about this paper was they also had a really large data set. So they recorded over 1,000 patients over 10 years, and were able to store the data. It was in the US, so there were not that many data regulations at that time as well. And yeah, I was able to work with the data. I didn't have the videos themselves, I just had the key points, and worked with those. And so what my goal was as well was to improve this model. So this is the model how it exists. So they didn't adapt it anymore. And found another paper again. It's called CBAM Convolutional Block Attention Modules. So maybe I've heard about Attention is All You Need, the paper where they use transformers, which are applied in large language models as ChatGPT. And they had the same idea, why when it works for language, why can't you use it for images or videos? And they, of course, adapted this idea, and were proved that they got better accuracies when implementing these modules. And I did this as well. So this is just one position or one location where I included the CBAM method, and was able to improve the results a bit, at least in this case. At the bottom, you can see the gait parameters that were estimated. So knee flexion at maximum extension, speed and cadence, and GDI stands for gait deviation index. And the blue bar you see here is the one of this benchmark paper I was talking about at the beginning. And the two other, orange and green, were the adapted methods from my side. And then as a comparison, we also added random forest and ridge regression, which didn't perform that well. And what else I needed to figure out, because I didn't want to record data for 10 years. I wanted to know how much data I actually need, or how many participants I need to test my system. Therefore, I trained the model again with the 1,000 participants, and just slowly decreased the amount to figure out that for the system to work, the similar accuracy, I needed around 150 participants. And the way I get these participants is through a gait laboratory. So I contacted some in Austria and found the orthopedic hospital in Speising, which is in Vienna. And you can also see these cameras. So they're using a Vicon system. It's just one producer of this method. They use the 3D gait analysis method. And they have a patient walking here. You can't see the markers because it's blurred for security reasons or GDPR reasons. So, and you can see the gait path. In this case, they've got 6 meters where the participant can walk front and back. And I had to, of course, also develop a system to record this data, so I can process this information I get afterwards. And that's why I want to just shortly talk about the recording setup. I'm using a stereo camera, which should give me the RGB information and the depth at the same time. Then a Raspberry Pi, I'm using version 5 for the processing unit, and also an Arduino Nano, which is connected to the light barriers in the laboratory, because it's important for me to compare my system with the Vicon system. There are some, when I go back, there are some light barriers at the back here and also at the front of the laboratory. So each time the participant walks through, both systems are started at the same time, and I can compare them as good as possible. Then I also developed a small front end for them to activate the whole thing. And after first test, it worked quite well. The only thing, the saving of this videos took quite some time, since I wanted to store 4K images, but I started off with full HD, but the storing of the information took up to 6 seconds, and the storing always took place when the person was turning around. And that was a problem because the participants had to wait for this 6 seconds and before they can turn around and go again. And each gate session has about 12 runs. And if summing all this up, it wouldn't be possible because they're only able to record 6 participants per day. And yeah, you would lose one of them for one day. So I had to change this. I had to use a mini computer, this case a Mac Mini, which reduced it to a maximum of 1 second, which was appropriate for their use case. And yeah, so I want to also show you the pipeline, how I'm working on it. We've got the participant walking, which is being recorded by camera, of course, and then using those information to get the pose and the depth information. I'm going to show in one of the next slides that why I'm using a new model instead of the stereo camera itself, because there's a real high noise with the stereo cameras, and yeah, I'm going to talk about that later as well. And this information I want to use for kinematic estimations. So another neural network model, which then recreates the graphs and estimates the gate parameters. So now to the maybe a bit more interesting part, the machine learning models I'm using. I decided to go further with YOLO, since they figured out, or they went into the pose estimation as well, and they have been releasing new models, quite a few models recently, and always improving, and also overtook OpenPose, which has been the forerunner for a long time. And it has a higher accuracy and has also higher speed and real-time performance, which is also an advantage to it. Then I also decided to go with Depth Anything, another machine learning model that didn't train on real life information, on real life videos or photos, but they created synthetic data, a huge synthetic data set where they exactly knew the depth of each pixel and trained it with this information. So these are the 2 rows. You can see these are just synthetic images, which are then estimated, and this is a real life image. And you can see so version 1 they developed some years ago, and version 2 just came out recently this year, and they can even detect the depth of glass, as you can see here, a lot better than version 1. Yeah. And there's one method as well I implemented. This is called IntelliVent. It's there to detect the gate cycles. So each cycle takes 2 steps, as you can see here, and it goes from 0 to 100%. So this is the right foot starting off, and this is the left foot. And the right-hand side, you can see how one of these graphs looks like for the pelvic rotation. So if you look from the top, you can see the right foot is red, yes, and left is the blue graph. And that's important for me to figure out, because otherwise I would have to look at each frame separately of a camera before I can know if it's an initial contact or not. And it's important for the gate analysis in general, and for synchronization purposes as well. Yeah, so I would like to show the current state as well. So this is the gate laboratory itself. The camera is positioned at the left-hand side, and you can still remember the image I showed at the beginning. And here's just the RGB information, and that's the depth I get from the camera itself. And you can already see it's quite noisy. Just walking left to right. Just going to repeat all this time, and yes, you can't really see. I mean, you can see it, but it's hard to detect, and also hard to detect the differences, the depth differences. Then here I already let the models run over the RGB information, and you can see the key points, and also how much detail you've got in the lower video. Both still using the smaller model, so there are still larger models that are more accurate, and you don't get, for example, this jittering you see of the key points. I mean, it's still difficult because the clothes are black, and it's hard to distinct, yes, darker pixels. And also, I'm using the full HD mode instead of 4K mode. Yeah. And these are the kinematic graphs I'm trying to estimate. So I'm just showing the lower extremities here. There's still those for the upper extremities as well. And you've got different positions. So if you go from the row top to down, you've got the pelvis, the hip, the knee, then the ankle and the foot. And the columns are the different angles that you look at the person. Sagittal plane is the side view. The frontal is self-explanatory from the front. And the rotations are the transversal plane that when you look from the top on the participants while walking. And a physician, someone that, the doctor at the laboratory, sees over these images if the person is suffering from gait anomalies or not. Similar to if you look at MRIs, the physicians also exactly know what the person has or not. And it's actually always used, and estimation, there are a lot of people already working into the SmartCar-less methods, but it's still hard to reconstruct these problems, these kinematic graphs. And as well, you can see again the 0 to 100% of the gait cycle itself. Yeah. So I'm still working on this project, trying to gather data, since, as I already mentioned, there are just 6 people that are measured per day, or recorded per day. And I need at least 100 to get some reasonable data. It will take up to a year to get all of them. And also, there's some ethical reasons. You need to, and since they're children being recorded, the parents need to approve that the children can be recorded and be used in some research. So, still waiting for data before I can continue. And I'll be using the depth and the key points for training of the new system and trying to reproduce this kind of graphs. Yeah, I think and I hope I didn't forget anything. Thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it like, doesn't it matter, or can't you adjust the lighting, or?
You can adjust.
Before you answer, can you repeat the question so also in the recording?
Oh, okay, yeah. So the videos are pretty dark, and the question was if I can adapt it so it's lighter. I guess you mean this one. Yes, it can be adjusted. The problem here was at that time this was just test scenario, and they actually forgot to turn it on.
Okay.
And yes. What else did I want to say? Yeah, there's other videos as well, but of other participants, and I'm not allowed to show them here. Yeah. Next question.
Maybe a follow-up question to this one, because I could imagine that the first layers of this image or depth analysis network actually do exactly that to normalize the image brightness. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's done automatically in the network.
So the second question was that we think that the neural network adapts the brightness of the video. I mean, if you go back to the first video. It's still the same brightness, I would say. And it's just the first frame or the thumbnail that you see that is bright. And then it's still the same brightness afterwards.
What I meant was it maybe internally normalizes the values so it gets brighter or distributes.
Oh, you mean in the camera itself?
In the model, in the neural network. But you
That-
don't see it unless you evaluate the values of within the network, obviously.
That could be, yes. I would have to look into that a bit more, yes. Thank you. Yeah.
Do you have vague estimates on how good an MRI is detecting that compared to your data? Just an order of magnitude. Are you 20% as good, 50% as good, 90% as good in detecting it?
So the question is if MRIs are able, if MRIs are able to detect cerebral palsy itself, and how, what is the last part?
I assume MRI is your technology as good as MRI? Or how much worse
So it's
is
not, you can't detect cerebral palsy in MRI. That's the problem. And because there are two different methods. If you can have some damage in the brain that you see, but it's not compulsory that cerebral palsy, it can be something else. And the brain can adapt as well, and then you don't have any effects on the body, on gait itself. So yeah, you need to do some gait analysis, or at least something with videos, or a physician that can see it without any kinematic graphs.
How is it compared to a doctor looking at the footage?
Doctor and physician, I just use it interchangeably.
Yeah,
They were-
your system versus a doctor look, like you're doing it automated,
Um,
you're doing the thing automated as well.
So, compared to a doctor can detect it, but you need a lot of experience to detect it. And there are not a lot of people that are capable of detecting it without the gait analysis itself. And goal would be to do this, to make this a commercial system in general. Since it's markerless, you don't need any physician to connect any markers anymore. And then, best case, you can use a smartphone to record the person and see if the person is suffering from it. Yeah, okay.
One last question.
Yeah, how do you, like, maybe I missed it, but how do you know now this person from the video has what you're looking for? You know, you have all the tracking and everything, but
Yeah.
now if you look at it, at those graphs, how do I now know this person has the disease?
So the question is if how we know if the person is suffering from this disease or not. And you mean just from the graphs itself, or from the video, or just from watching the person walk?
You're extracting the data, so now I want to look at the data and see, does he or she have it or not?
So me myself, I won't detect it. I can't say, but the physician knows it. and he still records with his existing system and sees it with his information if he has it or not. And then I, afterwards, with some post-processing, I'm trying to detect it with my machine learning model. So I hope it works as good. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay.
Speaker badge for you.
Oh, thank you.
And the next talk will be from Marcus. He's a lecturer at JPU, and he will present.
Yeah, perfect. So,
Say 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. So you heard my accent with 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Yeah, I think I'm ready to start. You're ready to start. So, hi everybody. My name is Markus Wenninger. I'm a senior lecturer at the Johannes Kepler University here in Linz. And I am a full-time teacher there, teaching software development 1, software development 2, algorithms, compiler construction, a lot of teaching in a lot of different subjects. I have also been to 2 Technologieplauscherls before this one, and it was pre-corona. So I want to introduce myself shortly to you. So hi, this is me, I am Marcus. During Corona, my family grew a little bit, so or after Corona. So there's Birgit and Lena, and there's also Billy. So if I'm not coding, I'm doing stuff with my family and the dog. So to get to know me, I am from St. Martin up there. We also bought a house during Corona, we were busy. I work here. I went to school in Leonding, so probably some of you went there. And I come from down there, Vöcklerbruck initially, and I work at JKU, and according to AI, it looks like this. There in the front, this is me, teaching my students, and I want to do my teaching as best as I can. So I ask myself questions like, I have to teach my students about lists and things like that. And so how to visualize this stuff in teaching material. So how do we visualize an add of the number 5 to a sorted list? So we should already have the 4 with the head and then the number 7. And then some 5 comes along. How do I explain the algorithm to find the matching position for the 5? So you have the new node, and typically you start at the head with a current node. And you also have a previous node, and I'm always there with my hands. I was there before we developed JavaVis, our graphical debugger. And then, once I have those pointers, what do I have to do? I have to move the pref, I have to move the car, and so on. And the problem is, if I have to visualize that in my PowerPoint slides manually, I spend a lot of hours doing PowerPoint slides. And that's very, very boring. So it's time-consuming, and I get tired. So we thought about we want something to be able to teach better, and we would also like to be able that our students can experiment, because when I do teaching, we always have those motivated students that even raise their hands and ask questions. And they probably ask, hey Marcus, yeah, but what if I change the 5 to a 2? And then I have a PowerPoint slide that has a 5 in it, but not a 2. So I cannot change the PowerPoint on the fly. So what do? I go to the blackboard, take chalk, draw something, and my hands are completely white afterwards. And also my clothes are white. I even put on some tech shirt today to match here. So, but the problem is, drawing on the board is time consuming. You get dirty, then I go back with the chalk hands to the laptop again. It's not cool. So what our goal was is we automatically want to create problem-specific solutions directly from the source code. So I have the source code, and I want to have visualizations that I can directly use in teaching. And if I have a question, what if I change this? I change it. and I run the visualization again. And we can see what changed. So the what if becomes a let's look at it. So that's the basic idea. And the result over the last few years was JavaVis, a graphical debugger openly available as a Visual Studio Code plugin, soon, hopefully, as an IntelliJ plugin. We have still a few bugs, but we are working on that. So JavaVis has different features that I'm going to talk about today, and in the end, I also try to give you a short live demo where we can try things out and have a look at it. JavaVis is pretty easy to use, so even our very beginner students can handle it, because we have some buttons there to move forward. Step into, step over, step out. And the cool thing is, we are a time-traveling debugger, or some call it omniscient debugger, so we can step back in time. We remember every state that we were in, because you often in teaching have the question, Markus, that was too fast. Can you repeat that? And if I have a normal debugger, I have to say, no, we already stepped. So we can step back. And we have different visualizations. So you can see that for different things that I want to teach, I need different visualizations. Talking about lists, I want a list visualization. Talking about heap objects, I need a heap visualization, and so on. Yeah. We can have 4 of them shown at up to 4 at the same time. Typically, since we are restricted in the screen space that we can show to the students, we typically use up to 2 visualizations at a time in live teaching. So some of you said, oh, cool, stepping back is nice. How do we do that? Our secret sauce, which is not secret, is execution traces. I love traces. Since my PhD, I have done so many different things with traces, and traces is just keeping an array of things that happened and having an index where we are currently. And if I just want to step back, I make I minus minus. And if I want to step forward, it's I plus plus. That's basically what we do when we have traces. So imagine that our debugger starts in the first line of our main method. What we record a lot of stuff. Where are we? In which file? In which line? How does our stack look like? How does our heap look like? Which static values do we have? What has been written to output, error, input, and so on? You see, that's a lot of data, and yeah, this doesn't scale. Do I care? No, because I am a visual debugger. The goal of JavaVis is to be used in an educational context. A few thousand trace states is no problem at all. So if I wanted to scale, I needed to find some compression scheme for this. Yeah? But so I have my first trace state. Then I move to the next line and get a second trace state with all these informations. I move on. You guessed right, another trace state. And so on, and so on. And now I have an array of trace states, and I can use these trace states to calculate visualization metrics. So I have one state, I have a second state, and then I can make a comparison. And so I can find out which fields have changed, which variables have been changed, which conditions have been evaluated, things like that. And this information then leads us to our visualization, where I can highlight things in red that changed, or I can move things around. So that's the basic idea behind that. And nearly every visualization me and my students and me develop at university is some trace-based visualization kind. So how do we collect traces? You're the tech guys here, so you probably want to know some details. When we start the front end, we also, behind the scenes, start the back end. A Java process or Kotlin process running on the local machine. We send the source code there from the student, and then we modify it a little bit behind the scenes, which is abstract syntax tree modifications. What we basically do is we have to track where conditions are, because we want to also track conditions, and we specifically track array accesses, because we have a specific visualization for arrays, which should help us in teaching especially 2D arrays, which are pretty hard because we have 2D arrays in the 4th lecture. So they start programming in the 1st lecture, in the 2nd lecture, and in the 4th they already have arrays. So there's really high speed at university. Then we have this modified program, we compile it, we get back some bytecode, then we start the program with this modified bytecode. This is the debuggy, because we attach to that program as a debugger. And we get our very first information, hey, this is the very first trace state. We are now in the first line of the main method. This trace state comes back to the front end, and there, our first visualization appears with a heap, with an empty args array. Nothing more has yet been created. And then we can press one of the step buttons, took a step forwards. This is sent to the backend. This thing talks to the program that we are attached as a debugger to. We get a trace state back, or if we did a step over, we might perform multiple small steps to achieve one bigger step. So we get multiple trace states at once sent back. So probably we have a run to line 50, and then the visualization updates, and we are now in line 50 down there. So that's the basic idea behind Java Viz. What kinds of visualizations do we have? This is the first one. It is the most ugly one, and it is the less useful one, except for the very first lecture. It's a tabular view of, in every column you have your variables and your conditions, and with every step you get a new line. And you can see exactly in which line, which variable was set to which value. So you have a complete history of every variable change. We use this for very small programs in the very first lecture. Who went to Johannes Kepler University for studying? Who had Professor Mössenböck in Software Development 1? You heard the term Schreibtischtest. This is a Schreibtischtest. This means going with your finger through the program and writing down every single change to a variable. This was our proof of concept that we can do a debugger that records every change, where we can go back and forth and things like that. Then my dream came true. We had a very good student, and when I went to HTL to school, my big dream was I have my source code there and I want to see it graphically. I wanted to have a flow diagram from every program that I write, and now I can do it. We just start Java Viz and we get those flowcharts. When we have a method call, we inline that method automatically here. This also works recursively. You can see which value your variables currently have, and you can really follow your program graphically where you go. Do we go left or right? Having a mental model of true means left and false means right. If you have a different mental model, you can even swap that. You can even move true to the right if you want that. Yeah, so flowcharts, also very nice to teach exceptions. You can show that you jumped to the exception handler and things like that. Yeah. The next thing is the memory view. We have a stack, we have a heap. We all know that. Beginners say, okay, 2 words, I have no idea what I should think about, how I should visualize that. And so we have the stack here with the main. If we have a method call, we get another stack frame. In the heap, our objects live, and the objects point to each other. And this is a very, very important visualization, probably for me the most important visualization, because it helps me to teach about reference semantics. Having 2 variables, both pointing to the exactly same object. So if I say A.name is Marcus, and B points to the same object, B.name also is now Marcus. Yeah? So that is very, very important also to teach call by value, call by reference. So there are different things where we can use this visualization. We have a array visualization, 1D and 2D. For the Java developers, you know that your 2-dimensional arrays are arrays of arrays, which looks really ugly if you have an array of multiple arrays in this general visualization. This is more like the C# version of arrays, where you really have rectangular arrays and you can visualize them. We modify the source code that we really know exactly when we access where, so we can highlight lines and rows and columns to show where we grab data from, where we write it to, and so on. This one is probably my most loved one, because this was also the one that I used as a motivating example, where we have the linked list and then new nodes get added or something like that. And you can already see in this example that this new node points with its next pointer to Kur. And our student Felix built a lot of heuristics to say, if I see that structure, I probably should move this node, which was previously here, already a little bit to the right. Because most probably, if the algorithm is correct, the next step will be that this pointer will point downwards there, and this one will move up. And it is a pleasure to look at when you see that animated. I can show it to you later. For those that visited a lecture with Professor Mössenberg, who sadly stops teaching or stops working this fall, he had a special in class for input in Java. Why? Because the old, way before the I/O class that was recently announced, was introduced, you had a buffered reader on a something stream, and it could throw exceptions. So we are in the very first day of writing programs, and we have to write a try-catch, even though we have no idea what a try-catch is. So we have a little helper class, and we have a special visualization to show the input stream, basically. What has already been read? Why is here an ICPC Ottawa example? You are getting a recycled presentation. I was allowed to present JavaViz in Canada this spring, and so you get a pretty similar visual presentation to what I showed there. And so we can see what was the last thing read using this special input class. Now there's demo time. I think I have a few more minutes left. So JavaViz is really easy to install. I have Visual Studio Code here, and you just have to go to the extension part, type JavaViz here, and there you have an install button. We do not have many ratings yet. If you want to give 5 stars, it's fine. If you would give less than 5 stars, write me an email beforehand. We are really happy to fix bugs, okay? So you have to understand that we are non-paid. My work, I'm teaching. If I work on JavaViz, I mostly do this in my spare time to keep this project going, and a few motivated students doing bachelor's and master's thesis. So we really try our best in the time that we have to keep this thing pretty professional, I think. Once you install it, you just have a new button here. It's called Run in JavaViz. Not really complex. You could also right-click Run in JavaViz, and then the thing on the right here opens, and we can select how many views we want to have, and then with right and left, I can step forwards and backwards in time. You see that I am in replay mode. Now I am in live mode again, because I reached the end of my trace. And probably we can play a little game with the most ugly visualization that we have. We have a constant max, an integer constant max, which is 4, and I divide it by 3, and I store it in an integer variable I. What will be the value of I? B? 1, yeah. In my teaching, I would say you get a star, because at university, when I teach, my students get stickers, star stickers. It's the most valued thing about me. They say, I do not care what you say, just give me stickers. But the next one, I would like to hear your answer. Max integer 4 divided by integer 3 stored in a double variable is 1 or more specifically? More 1.0, yeah. So that's most of the time pretty interesting for the students because they look at double and they say, oh, it will be a double division. We are in the very first lecture. So this is pretty cool that we could either use this visualization or we can stay with the flow chart where we can directly see which value is currently in which variable, and then we can continue. Sometimes I even move my debugger in a new window, make it even full screen, even hide the source code, because instead of showing the source code on the left-hand side, I have the graphical representation, and on the right-hand side, I don't know, I probably have the tabular visualization, things like that. So arithmetic probably isn't the most interesting thing. I will show you the list. Before I run out of time, I will show you the list. That's what I'm here for. So we have a list. And I want to run it in JavaViz. And so let's move it into a new window. Let's open it up, zoom a little bit in, reduce the width limit to see everything. And on the right-hand side, I would like to have the linked list visualization. We have also something for binary trees. And yeah, we are working on the demo.list class, if I find it, with the demo.node class. Okay. So let's create a new list. And this new list currently does not have a head. It's null. So let's prepend something there. We can step into that. So you see it automatically. I could also step into the new node, but let's step over that. We have a new node with the value 8 stored in it. We can also store persons and dogs and whatever in our nodes. This also can be visualized. Then we say n.next is head, which means n.next is null. And we are the new head. So the sound effects are still not implemented. And I will not implement them because then my joke is gone. I used this joke for now 2 years. So and then that was a prepend on an empty list. Not very interesting. Let's make another one. New node, value 6. You already see one of our heuristics working. We have an existing list, so we place us below that. We say our next node is the current head. And we become the new head. And there we are. We can prepend once more, and we can prepend once more. And most probably, I should show you how to insert something in a list, because that is the more complex algorithm. So let's go into the insert method. We make a new node. Let's move it a little bit. The new node has the value 7, and now we have to find the correct place. So let's see. We have a current pointer, and we have a pref pointer to the left. And we now check if current has reached the right location, because current should be right of the position where we want to add, and previous should be left of the position. And in the middle, we want to add. Yeah? So pref has to be put wherever car currently is, and car has to move one further. We again have a check in the loop. We find out we have to step once more. Previous, come. I go along. Previous, come once more. Current moves to the right. Even moves with us. Yeah. And now we found out we do not have to do that loop one again. Boom. We exit the loop. And now we say our new node that should be inserted at the right location. The follow-up is the cur. Previous.next is n, which does this Then we are done with the method, and we have inserted a 7 in our list. And I could go to my code. If a student asks me, and what would happen if I wanted to add a 77? And I can do that. And I can just run it again, and I can show them how the things would be different. So what are our next steps for Java Viz? I could show you so much more, but the time is not here. The takeaways are, we are trace-based, and traces are cool. We have execution traces. We trace everything that we do line by line. We have information about heap, stack, statics, input, output, and conditions, array accesses, and things like that. We perform some AST modifications, AST modifications, to track certain things. We have then different visualizations. Currently, we have this tabular view. We have flow charts. We have a memory view where we can explain what heap and stack is. We have an array view with access highlighting. We have linked lists and binary trees, or I'm not sure if it's even general trees, but at least binary trees. We have an I/O view. We have sequence diagrams automatically generated that I yet not have used in teaching because that is our most current master thesis that just finished. But we already shipped it because we trust in our students. We are currently working on visualizing Java Stream API operations as marble diagrams because we now want to take the next step from software development 1 to software development 2, especially once we have the IntelliJ plugin. This is also one thing that keeps us a little bit back. And the second visualization we are working on is concurrency visualization for introduction to threads. Yeah. Future work is one thing. Yeah, everybody is throwing LLMs at everything. But I think this is a situation where they could probably prove useful. If I am here showing you a visualization, talking about the visualization, it probably makes sense. It hopefully makes sense. But does the visualization make sense if I'm not here? If the student is at home and has to use the debugger on their own? And my idea would be, can a large language model predict an X, a Y, where I want to have a speech bubble, and a text that I should place into that speech bubble? So I say, person.name equals Marcus, and I get a speech bubble. See, the name changed, something like that. Yeah, I would like to have some a little bit more sophisticated, but the basic idea is replacing my annoying voice with a very unannoying, very friendly, very supportive large language model advice thing. And you could perform so many studies if I had the time, if I had the students, if I was a empirical guy, you could investigate how students use those things, where they look at, where they click at, how often they click, how often they misclick. Learning outcomes is pretty hard. Giving them a new visualization and saying, oh, the grades got better, there are so many confounding variables that you cannot say, hey, you would have to put them into prison, and even there you have confounding variables. So it's really hard to find out whether a single visualization made their grades better. You can ask them about subjective usefulness, but that's subjective. But at least it's a value. That we already have, it is subjectively useful. We had 500 respondents to different questions. So yeah, that's me. I was Marcus. I am still Marcus. I was and I am a senior lecturer at Johannes Kepler University. If you have kids that want to study something cool, send them to Johannes Kepler University. Don't send them to the AI studies. We need computer science students, yeah? I know AI hype, Java Viz, it is free, it is open source. You can download it as a Visual Studio Code extension. We even have a website where I pay 20 euros a year to host information about this cool thing. We have a video there, we have our paper there. My time is over, and I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you. Yeah?
If you introduce the AI tutor, will it get a fun avatar like Clippy?
The question was, if we introduce an AI tutor, if it gets a fun avatar as Clippy. There are studies out there that Clippy was annoying. I don't think that Clippy was annoying, and I'm old enough to know Clippy. Yeah, my students do not know Clippy anymore because we asked them about it. We had another guidance system in another tool where we had a little light bulb where I said, oh, it was nice to have a light bulb, but it would have been nice if it had eyes or something like that. So my students invented Clippy again, just in form of a light bulb. So probably we could try it again. Yeah. But probably no. Probably it would be some speech bubbles located at specific locations. You have an arrow and you want to explain why the arrow is there now. Yeah, something like that. Yes?
Does it work with Kotlin?
It currently does not. The question is, does it work with Kotlin? No, it currently only works with Java, but I have an ongoing master thesis where we try to make this pretty much language independent. As you saw in the beginning, we attach to the running program as a debugger. We are a Java program, or we are a Kotlin program, attaching to a Java program. That works very fine. But attaching to a C# process is pretty hard from a Java perspective, or attaching to Python as a debugger. So what we do is we want to increase the AST modifications to put everything into the source code to make the program automatically inform us if something changed. Every field write will result in a, hey, Marcus, my field changed. And this source code modification is pretty language agnostic, yeah? So once we have that change finally done from being a debugger to a debuggee to, hey, we changed the AST to give us all the informations once they happen, then we can also support Kotlin, C#. C# is the biggest question from teachers out there because many schools use C# for teaching, and hopefully Python. And yeah, then that's why we have the website javaviz.net because hopefully we will support C# in the future. I did not only study computer science, but also marketing, you see. Yeah. Are teachers in here? If there are teachers in here, probably you could come up to me and tell me what you need to make JavaViz suitable for schools. We want to make that thing really used, yeah? We don't code, we code for fun, but we want that it is also used, okay? So thanks.
Thank you. I heard you like some stickers.
Yeah, stickers.
Nice. Okay. Only one mic is working at a time. Thanks for your attention. Thanks to the awesome talks. I think the presenters will be around for more questions. I think the food is ready in the back. Enjoy. We have a break now until 8:30, and then we will have the second round of talks. Thank you. Do you want to continue? Please come to the front again. Yep. Please grab some new drinks and come to the front again. Before we continue with the next two talks, I want to give you an overview about our community news. So today, as you know, we are at the Technologieplauscherl at the 88th edition. And you can see we already fixed the next date. So put it in your calendars. It will be on the 13th of November, and we will be at the JKU. So Markus will be presenting there at his home turf. Tomorrow there's the bi-monthly Game Dev Linz meetup in the last by Schachermeier. And on the 24th of September, there's the Cloud Native Computing meetup. I think it's also their first meetup after the summer break. Then, what I'm really happy about is there's a new Linux FOSS meetup again here in Linz, also hosted here at Cloudflight, so you already know the way. And then a day later, there will be the Socrates Austria, which is a really nice unconference. Go there. Then in October, we have the IT Futures Festival. It's in the Design Center. There will be many companies. I think you have heard of it. And then on the 28th of October, you see two entries. The .NET Stammtisch and the Cloud Native Computing Linz. Cloud Native was first, so .NET Stammtisch will probably switch the date. So register a meetup and then make sure you go on the right date to the right place. Then in November, as I said, the Technologieplauscherl and the Cloudflight coding contest, the Cloud Native Computing again, and in December, make it interesting. We have the DevFest Linz. The place, I think, has still to be announced, or we need another pull request to our community news. And then in January, there's the code retreat at the Wissensturm. And with this, I open the second round of talks. Thomas will now talk about keyboards, and then afterwards, Wolfgang will talk about Drupal. Give a warm round, big applause to Thomas.
Okay, yeah, does it work? Okay. Yeah, let me just quickly switch to my presentation. All right, yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Thomas Pollack, and I want to talk about my hobby project, which is the Poly keyboard. And as the title says, displays in your keycaps. You can maybe imagine what it's about in this specific keyboard. I have all kind of, social media pictures if you're interested. And before I actually jump in right now, I always get the question, but why do you do this? And then I always try to explain, hey, yeah, it's really nice if the key actually tells you what it does. You can switch the layout, you can switch the language, and then they all say, oh, but you're not supposed to look on the keyboard. So I gave up. I said, why not? Well, okay. So how this project actually started, so already quite some time ago, 2020, COVID, everybody was at home, everybody did something. And I had this little key caps plus the display lying around, and it felt like, oh, actually, a similar size. Well, could that work? So display was 15 by 50 millimeter, and normal keycap is 1905 millimeters. Yeah, let's see if that works. Yeah, would it fit into? And wow, how many such displays could I actually address? 1, 2, 100? I don't know. And then I remembered I have seen similar things. So yeah, let's check that out. So it did not fit into the keycap I showed you because it's a little bit tapered. It's going, it's getting smaller to the top. So 15 by 15 is too big. But I felt like, oh, let's just print something. So I started my 3D printer, some transparent PETG, and yeah, this is how it looked like, and wired everything up, and I felt like, okay, let's do a test. Yeah, so 10 displays. How can we address them? They actually came with I2C controller, which I felt like, oh, perfect. Every display is address, but turns out you can only choose between one or the other address. So you have 2 fixed hardwired addresses, and that's it. So basically no addresses. Yeah. So I felt like, okay, let's just use the clock or the signal line, to mute it. So I used the shift register, and shift register can parallel output like multiple lines, and I can just do the clock when I set the shift register, high and low. And with that, I could actually then accept the data, whichever data is on the line. So I could select just which display I want to control. And that worked. So it's a simple test. You can see the one shows 6, 5, and they all have individual numbers. So this was my first test setup. So that works. I could do that. Yeah, and what was about that? I've seen that. Yeah, I mean, this has been tried multiple times before. So even in the 80s already, there was like a keyboard where the F keys had like a LCD display you could program. There is a commercial solution for like big key switch decks for sound system and stuff. There was even a commercial keyboard. You might have seen the what is it called for an Art Lebedev, the Optimus Maximus. It was a keyboard for $1,600. It needed an extra like power adapter to just power the keyboard, and the keys were very stiff, so people got tired when typing. They later on made a new version, which was just like a screen on the back, and the keys are transparent, and it was easier to control, and like all the technology was easier, but it never caught on. Similar, there is also a keyboard with the same idea, but just in e-ink. And there's a pretty recent one. It's called Flux Keyboard. It's, again, whole screen, and you basically have just magnetically suspended keys. And beneath that, there's just a sensor to sense, the key press. And even other people more or less do the same like I did. There is a guy who also made his own keyboard and stumbled across similar problems, but he later on switched the project to have a Doom running in a Lego brick, which is also kind of cool, so I thought I'd mention it. Yeah, the same display, by the way. And then there are also commercial solutions like this Stream Decks, where you have a display and then you press the button, but it's not made for typing, it's just for special like actions, right? So I felt like this should be better, right? If I type on a keyboard, I want to have this typing experience. I don't want to have stiff buttons. I don't want to have like transparent buttons which are suspended by magnets. So I want a proper key. So I was looking, maybe there's a way to do that. So I found these displays which are even smaller than the first ones. So they are now 11 by 12 millimeters. And resolution 72 by 40 pixels, and that in fact is small enough to really fit into a normal like keycap like I showed you at the beginning. And then I found these. You maybe have seen them like in cash registers. Actually the idea is like you have the little plastic piece, the white one, you put a sticker on it, and then the clear cap on top, and then it says some special function, whatever it does in that cash register. And instead of the little plastic or sticker, I just put my display in. So I made a little slit into plastic piece so that the flex cable can go down. So this was my first approach. That works, but it's kind of short, as you can see. So there's like, I don't know, half a centimeter left. So what shall I do with that? Yeah. Well, at least it was a try, right? So I felt like, okay, let's just extend the cable. So these are commercial FPCs, so like flex printed circuits. And this is a normal extender, so it's very bulky, so this is like a no-go. So I had to think about an idea, and I felt like, okay, well, let's just solder it together, because I have one flex cable, another flex cable. What could go wrong? So I bought a solder paste, which melts already around, I think 160 degrees or something like this, because actually the flex cables are only rated for 80 degrees. After that, they will start to melt, but just start. So if you're quick enough. So to not spend too much time, with the hot air gun, I first distributed the solder paste on the pins so that, both sides have enough solder on top. And then I just used the hot air gun to make both sides liquid and then quickly press down with the squeezer. And that actually works. That works. So it's perfect. Well, 20% of the displays died, but, it's good. Okay. Key switches, yeah, these are mechanical key switches, not the rubber domes you maybe have in the office. So if you don't know the difference, rubber dome is just rubber piece making a contact on the PCB, and a switch is really making like a mechanical contact. And I think this is the preferred way of typing, at least I feel like this. You can think different, it's fine. And usually they have this little slit, and I use the slit to get the cable, the flex cable from the display through. Sometimes there's a little bar, but you can just cut it away. At the beginning, I had the problem that the slit was just 8 millimeter wide, and the flex cable was 8.5. So I always, for each key, I had to remove a little bit of plastic on the side, but more on that later on. So I did another test setup, this time with the new displays. Yeah, some switches just to test, and microcontroller, and yeah, that worked. This was great. I started, when the chip shortage was in full swing, and then I had to change microcontroller because suddenly it cost $70 to get just a normal microcontroller, and the Raspberry Pi 2040 just came out. And then I found out that also you can put QMK, it's a firmware for keyboards, so it is the right open source project you can just put on, and they have support for RP2040s, and yeah, so I put already on this one, was operating a normal keyboard firmware. You can plug it in a computer, it prints 1, 2, 3, 4 if you press. And I could already invert the display, so it's working, right? So I felt like, okay, let's make a PCB. This was the first time for me to use KiCad. I used Eagle long time ago, but yeah. So I felt ready after a few tutorials and made a full-size keyboard, and it totally failed. And I went in production, so I started with a humble 1 key. And I put all the passive components needed for the display, just beneath the key, so you can just attach one after another, and yeah. So this is what I ended up with. So these are 4 units attached already, and you could wire them up in a row up to 8 switches. And yeah, I baked them in my oven at home, so that's actually not so difficult. Everybody can do that. You just need to, it's not so difficult. You just apply the solder paste and the SMD parts, and you put it in the oven for a few minutes, and then baked. All good. So this is how I went on then, right? You can see the key switches on the cable. At the beginning, it started with a too long one, never mind. So the cable goes through the PCB and in a socket, and this is how it looked like, and pretty much the same setup like before, just now in the keys, right? And I extended it even further, so make a keypad, and yeah, that was kind of working, almost. There was some issue, and I didn't know what it was at that time, but I was like, okay, let's go on. Let's figure out later. Yeah, so my motivation changed. I felt like, okay, I can see it working. Oh, wow, 50 minutes ago. I should speed up a little bit. Yeah, so can we make a full keyboard? And yeah, then the keys could tell me what they actually do. So I opted for a split keyboard because I can test one side at a time and it has less keys, so it's more manageable. And if both sides work, I can wire them up. So that at least this was my idea. There's a very useful KiCad plugin. It's called a replicate layout because you don't want to do that all over again, for each and every key to lay out all the passive components. So that's very handy. And after that was working, I also needed kind of a font system because also my goal was to have like a multilingual keyboard. I didn't want to only have like German and English. Also like sometimes I write some Korean because my wife is from Korea, so I'm text her something, but then you have to switch keyboard. So I needed some font system that supports it, and there's actually already the Adafruit GFX font. It didn't support like 2-byte characters, so I extended that one. And there are free fonts like these from Google, and then you can just render that into a pixmap, and there you go. So this was my first like proper keyboard prototype, I would say. You can see I messed up some wires, never mind, it's good. And it was working, so I've again was very motivated to continue, so I wired up the second side, and this was also working, so it was quite motivating to see this come to life. Yeah, and you remember the glitch I showed you, and it turned out that the MCU, the microcontroller, couldn't drive all the parallel displays. So on one side there are 36 displays, and the MCU pin cannot drive like 36 display in parallel. And because of this, or it did, but it did very slow, and then I had this kind of glitches. So my solution for this was to add some 1-bit buffers. So first the pin is just driving a few buffers. So for each column there is one buffer, and then the buffer is driving all the individual keys. And it's very simple. It's a hardware solution, and then it's no problem for the microcontroller to drive all the keys in parallel. Yeah, here just some peripherals. You can see I added. There's an extension port where you can add some more like input devices, like a mouse or like a scroll wheel, as you want. And I came to a solution with the slit. I said it was a little bit too wide, right? But I found a nice Chinese manufacturer. I just promised him to take 10,000 pieces, and he said, okay, I'll make you a new one with a smaller ribbon. And yeah, I still should buy them, maybe. But I have a couple of hundreds of test samples. Yeah, and they're now 7.5 millimeters, and I can just put them into any key switch that has the slit without modification, which is really nice. So this is like how it would look like from a block diagram, but I will skip that, otherwise I will exceed the time. So yeah, now it's time for the keys to actually, do something like what I wanted to. The key should tell me what it actually does, right? And the hardware was good enough, so I started to create a Python program that's actually talking to the keyboard, because I don't know which application is active, right? So like keyboard shortcuts change with every application change. So I created a Python program that communicates with the keyboard. And I created a template like this. And here you can see, for instance, I made some simple setup for GIMP. Like GIMP is like image manipulation program. And it's really useful, if you see what the keys do. Here you can see a screenshot from the keys close up. And yeah, it's really helpful. And, you can extend the concept for any program, right? Yeah, unfortunately, software is not a product. It's a process. It's always changing. I use this now already. So this Python program, I think close to 1.5 years, 2 years, something like this. And like all the time, something comes up that needs to be changed. because I use the keyboard every day for work. I bring it to work, or when I work at home, I have another one. So yeah, even though the hardware didn't change recently, a lot of changes are in the software, just the communication to the keyboard, or for instance support, like I have support for Windows, Mac OS, and for Linux. And Linux is a little bit tricky. There's X11, there's Wayland. It all needs a custom solution, which is a bit annoying. And also work from time to time with a remote desktop setup. That means I don't get actually window change because I work in this remote desktop box, right? So I have a connection that goes through this. It tells my local system, hey, in the remote setup, there's this and that window active. Please change the layout according to that. Stuff like this. And then there are other limitations, like keyboards talk to the computer with a HID protocol, and it's very slow. It's like 32-bit maximum, 32 bytes maximum per report, and then it's polled at the constant speed to ensure real time, but it's really slow. And so I'm compressing data. Like I only have 1-bit pixel data, right? But still I have to compress, RLE, compress, and then I'm only sending what I really need. So I'm only sending like region of interest. I use 6-bit integers, 10-bit integers, whatever is needed, for the data I transport, because the bandwidth is very limited. Of course, it's USB, right? So I could just use some serial protocol, but unfortunately, the firmware, QMK, I'm really happy that I can use it because it takes a lot of the heavy lifting, but it has no interface for serial protocol, so I cannot do some high-speed communication, and that's a bit of an annoying thing. So I have to look into maybe there's a way to exchange the USB stack in a meaningful way. I don't know yet. Yeah, and what else would be there? You constantly think about how can you improve your own idea. Of course, obviously other layouts, because people ask why you're using a split keyboard. Yeah, you can also do other form factors like 10 keyless or like shrink 60%, whatever. By the way, don't ask me for full size. That's not the idea. Okay, we don't use full size so the button then change all the time. If you still use full size, you should try another keyboard once and then we talk again. Yeah, and actually there are already similar sized color displays would be really great, right? Like color, but as already said, with color the complication comes that the data suddenly gets much bigger, right? Even if I would just do 8-bit like old school, the RAM requirement would rise by 8 times, and now I'm already at the limit from the Raspberry Pi 2040. Of course, there's a new one. There's the 2350, which allows an external RAM that would work, but still I have this like transfer problem to the host system. So yeah, not sure if I want to go that way. And everybody was thinking, hey, e-ink, right? E-ink, and yeah, would be great. And I would like to have such small e-ink displays, but they don't exist. I only use, available hardware off-the-shelf components with a little modification from the Chinese friends. Thank you. So if anybody wants to finance 200,000 e-ink displays, talk to me later on. Happy to talk about it, because this is the size of, how many you have to order in order to make like custom e-ink displays. They ask you, you're taking 200,000 pieces? Yes, then let's go. Yeah, and it would be really nice to have e-ink, because then we could have like a lightweight battery-operated keyboard, right? I would love to see that. It would be really great. Okay, I hope I was not talking too fast. Great, and now I'm almost at the end. Yeah, maybe you have questions now, because I have a short video, and maybe do questions before the video. Yes, please.
How much more than the 1600 for the Optimus Maximus did you pay for the whole?
So the question was how much more I invested in the whole project compared to the Optimus Maximus for $1,600. I don't know, and it's probably more than that, but it was like a fun hobby project, right? So it's not like you buy something and then you, I don't know what to do with it, and probably sell it again. It was like a 5-year fun. So that's how you should view the whole thing. Yeah, please.
Does your wife sometimes get angry with you?
Yeah. The question was if my wife gets angry. Yeah, she complains, don't do this keyboard thing. Yeah.
I was wondering, you transfer the images via the program to the keyboard. Why not store it on the keyboard directly, and you program it like with web serial or something like that?
Yeah, so the question is why I'm transferring the data from the host, from the computer to the keyboard and not storing it on the device. I can absolutely do this. There's plenty of space. But the thing is, you have to program your keyboard again and again. And from the perspective of user friendliness, it's quite annoying if you have to reprogram it, because for reprogramming, you have to go into programming mode and then download the images. You can do that. You can probably pre-program your favorite 20 programs or whatever, then that speeds things up. But there was no way around about the proper communication to do like something on the fly. And I think if I'm over these little speed bumps, then why not do it like this? Because the number of keys is limited, so the number of required images is limited, and I can just transfer that. But yeah, it's a valid point. Yeah, please.
USB-C can be used to mount displays. Have you thought about just programming it as a display and using some kind of display driver to show the images?
So the question was, because USB-C can be also used like as a display, if I thought about using it like a display driver so that you can just display like images or whatever. No, I did not think about it, but again, this is maybe a thing with the firmware used. You have to maybe get some, I don't know, driver ready to do this. Maybe also from how I built this. I built this from a keyboard firmware, and then I just sent a few bytes to the first displays to display something, and I extended from that standpoint. So yeah, maybe possible. Who knows? Yeah. Yes, please.
So for 200,000 e-ink displays, that's 4,000 keyboards, right?
Yeah, probably. So as
Sounds like a Kickstarter.
Thank you. So the question was like 200,000 ink displays sounds like a Kickstarter project, because that would just imply like 4,000 or maybe 5,000 keyboards you should sell. Yes, I mean, my next point, the video is a similar point, so thanks for mentioning that one. Yeah, it's complicating things if you want to use something that does not exist, like a promise into the future. I mean, this is still a hobby, right? So I'm tinkering around, but yeah, good point. Yes, please.
Does the human interface, the HID protocol or USB or anything have any standard that anyone agrees on the color thing, like just an RGB keyboard dynamically setting?
So the question was if the HID protocol has some kind of standard so that you can do interactions like change the RGB color of your keyboard or whatever. No, it's just 32 to 64 bytes freeform. Whatever you do is up to you. Again, the firmware supports some basic things, and it supports changing color on the RGB color, and also the basic layout via software called VIA. But it's very basic for my purpose, because my purpose is like a little bit broader. So I support that, but I also have then see, okay, is the command not, so there's one command byte, the first one, where I can see this is actually for this kind of software or not, and if not, I just take the bytes as they are, and then, yeah. Okay, so if there are no more questions at the moment, before I roll the video, so I made a promotional video, so please excuse the advertisement. So it's going to that direction with the crowdfunding. And I have the keyboard and a few prototypes plus the samples with me. So if you're interested, after the talks, talk to me. I can show you, I can give you a demo if you're interested. I'm happy to talk about it. Okay. Yeah, so indeed, this is available on another platform, not Kickstarter, but CrowdSupply, at least to register interest, because I'm somehow not ready to do this, because it takes a lot of effort and it takes money to maybe found a company and stuff. And so if you want to finance me, talk to me. It would be great to maybe one day do this. And until that happens, I'm happy to talk to you about it. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Use a clicker, or do you want to click it on your laptop?
Yeah, let's do that.
Can we plug USB in?
Sure, let's just do that.
This does nothing. Just say something so you're out.
Test. Okay. Good. Hello, new topic, completely different topic, like Drupal. So I'm here to introduce you a little bit to what's going on in the Drupal universe. So I'm curious actually, who of you actually knows Drupal? Okay, at least quite a few hands. And maybe how many of you are into web development? Also, okay, thank you. That gives me some context. So first off, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Wolfgang Ziegler, Online Fargo. I'm managing partner and CTO at Tronomics. We are a Drupal development company with offices in Vienna and also an office in Linz. I'm also an open source contributor. I'm contributing to Drupal for now 20 years. It's been a while. So I've been doing many popular Drupal extensions. Then with Drupal 8, I also spearheaded an introduction of the Entity API in Drupal core. And since that, I also help out as Drupal core subsystem maintainer of only the foundational type data API, not anymore the Entity API. That's just too much work, honestly. I'm also working as the lead of the Lupus Decoupled Drupal project, and I've co-founded Drupal Austria Association. It's like a Drupal association in Austria. Yeah, and my hobbies are traveling. So last year, I did a big trip together with my little family, my wife and my son. We went for 9 months with a van, a Volkswagen, for the Panamericana, the northern part. So we shipped the car to eastern Canada, went to Alaska, and then went down to Panama. From there, shipped the car back home. So it was an amazing experience. But today, we are here to talk about Drupal. Drupal, as some of you know, it's an open source framework like a PHP CMS. It's based on PHP. It's quite popular. Although nowadays it's more and more WordPress eats the market, but Drupal is, I would say, the more professional and also the more enterprise variant, which also is more popular by developers, I would say. And it works also with MySQL, PostgreSQL, or some other database, but mostly MySQL and PostgreSQL. It has some powerful features like revisions, workflows, multilingual, permissions. It's API first, since 2019. And everything you want to know about it, you find on Drupal.org. It's the home of Drupal. So Drupal development is actually quite big. It's a really large open source community. There are more than 1,000 of Drupal developers who are contributing to Drupal core. But that's just the core of it. Like the extensions, it's way larger. So like there are 10,000 extension modules. Sorry for the Germany. There's a little global connected community, and like the code is self-hosted on GitLab. And there's also nowadays a Slack where you actually can get in touch with the community best. Maybe a short word on the government. As I mentioned, it's a true open source project, so it's like not driven by like a main company. It's like really driven actually by the Drupal Association, which is an association. It's a known public good. It's led by the project lead Dries Buttert, who is actually leading it technically and also leading the team of the 12 core committers and the core subsystem maintainers. But like organizationally, it's all led by the Drupal Association, which basically drives infrastructure, the events, the funding, and like steers basically all where Drupal goes. And the association again is like steered by a board, which is like has some voting mechanisms and everything. So it's like 12 different people. So actually that way, Drupal is not dependent on the project lead. So it's really like it works with the Linux Foundation and other things, a proper open source project. So I'm here also to talk about not only what's Drupal, but also what's new in Drupal. And the Drupal Starshot has been like a quite interesting initiative there, which has been launched like last year, like March in 2024. The idea was to make a new Drupal product also for mid-market marketers, because like Drupal a little bit evolved a lot more and more in the enterprise market. And the idea was to also get some ground back, to also get more back in the mid-market again. So this project was launched, and it's basically a pre-configured, user-friendly tool. It also comes with AI-driven site building. And that initiative was launched, and basically 8 months later, there was the first release. And after some thinking, it was just named Drupal CMS. But I think it's maybe a little bit confusing because Drupal was there before and it's CMS, and now the new thing is Drupal CMS. But that was the marketing decision. I don't know. So now there is like Drupal Core, which is like the advanced thing, basically, which you can take to build your own custom flavor of everything, which so far like everyone did. And now there's also the Drupal CMS, which basically is a pre-built system based upon Drupal Core, which is just ready to go and really makes it much, much easier to get started, in particular when you're new to Drupal, basically because it's just like a best practice build you can start it with. So for example, like when you install it, it also like helps you like with some prepackaged recipes for your site. So you can basically select a couple of things and it just sets up the site so you can get started faster, and then you can adapt and customize the configuration. So that's a new thing that was also invented, like for the Drupal CMS, like this recipe system. So it's very easy to create and share recipes of Drupal configuration. Besides that, like there is administration UI improvements, like a new navigation search. It has administrative dashboards. It's GDPR safe. Search engine optimization out of the box, and the pre-configured Drupal AI, like a couple of nice things. And this looks like this. This is like the navigation it has, new navigation bar on the left, nothing special. Some search, which just like reacts with the hotkey. Dashboards, also nothing very special, but it's also nice. It's all configurable and adaptable to your needs. Another thing that was introduced for Drupal CMS is automated updates, because like you make a website, no one wants to take care about the updates. So like WordPress has auto updates, so they figured, yeah, Drupal should have it too. And so it can also do auto updates now, but only on the patch level releases. So that means from time to time, like a developer will have to come and do like minor versions, major version updates. But with the patch level updates, you can go up to a year. The updates are actually done in a proper, safe way. Like it first like compiles the updated site in a separate directory, make sure everything is good, and only if it's good, it switches it over. And like the decision was actually for that to not reinvent the wheel, but it's building up in the update framework. And like the Drupal community basically built the PHP version of the update framework as a composer package. Composer is like the package manager of PHP. And like that way also it let make sure like when the updates are fetched, it does a signature check and everything, so it's also secure. So it's a nice way. But still, of course, you need to have write permissions on your server for that to be possible. Another thing that got introduced is like a project browser. So like via the UI, you can very easily find new Drupal extensions, recipe, one-click install them, just makes it easier to get started. So this looks like this. Yeah, nothing very too special. So basically it just makes things that were always available via CLI and everywhere also more reachable via the user interface. But really the missing piece about that thing with the Drupal CMS is, well, for building websites, a nice page builder would be nice. And Drupal traditionally had many competing solutions, a lot of powerful solutions, but also like a lot of agencies just built their own stuff and made it work nice. But like if you went in as a starter, it was quite hard to have something nice. So right now, like there's like the Drupal CMS 2.0 release being developed, which is supposed to be released next month. And it will come with the new Drupal experience builder, not anymore Drupal canvas. So due to some legal reasons, it had to be renamed. So it's now Drupal canvas. But that's the new page builder, which is currently developed. I think it's not going to happen to be really stable at October, but definitely I think this year. But we'll see. You can find it as always on Drupal.org. And basically the idea how it works is, of course, it's a component-oriented page builder. There's a modern UI. It really wants to achieve data and design consistency because Drupal traditionally is really, really strong in structured data, and that advantage it wants to keep. And it also wants to really target the needs of marketing experts and also like improve the handoff between designers and developers. It basically has a UI which looks like that. Like as you would expect, you have the components on the left. You can drag them on your screen, and on the right side you can change the properties of your components, and we'll see the changes. Yeah, as I said, that's what you expect nowadays. And what kind of components does it actually have? So the concept is really to build up my design system. So you don't want to have the editor or the marketer to change everything and make ugly pages. So the idea is really to have like developers together with designers take care of build a design system, then allow people to compose pages out of those design components. So the Drupal way of doing design components would be single directory components right now, which works with Twig, which is a PHP templating language. And based upon that components, then you can mix and combine the components and basically also like assemble new components, make those available as reusable patterns. But that's then also very useful for the site builders. Then of course you can just take Drupal blocks, which is basically existing concept in Drupal for renderable items. It can be flexible, like listings of articles or something. So in the end, basically you have dynamic components that way. And you can also do JavaScript components, like it comes basically with a UI where you can, like in the UI, prototype your own components with JavaScript. It uses React. It has Tailwind out of the box, so you can very easily make some new components, prototype it, and then directly use it. And that way, basically, build everything together in the thing. And later on, you can take the components and make it nice if you want. Yeah, and that said, like Drupal frontend is right now, I would say, there are, like as always, multiple ways to do it. Like it's open source, there are multiple ways. The standard thing is to do it like with Twig, PHP templates on the server side, with the single directory components, which makes it easy to have reusable components. That also got modernized recently. There was like HTMX was introduced instead of the Drupal Ajax system to modernize the interaction with the server. That's also quite nice. But of course, like as I mentioned before, Drupal is also traditionally strong with APIs. Not new, but there's still like Drupal comes with JSON API for all its entities out of the box in Drupal core. There's like good extensions for GraphQL, for OAuth servers. All you need is basically there. So there are also like popular solutions like for building decoupled websites with it. Like if you want to do React, next Drupal.org is a popular project to do it. And as I mentioned, we are working on Lupus decoupled Drupal, which is another like decoupled Drupal stack, which basically does it a little bit different. It's like a low-code, fully integrated solution, which pairs it with a Nux frontend out of the box. You can also do others like React. But the idea is really that you keep rendering pages in Drupal into high-level components, and then these components you just render in your decoupled frontend, which in our case we use Nuxt. That's quite neat because you can keep a lot of Drupal's features, like Drupal stays in control of paths, metadata, caching, and all that stuff. It works and you don't have to reinvent the wheel when you do a decoupled application. So a lot of the site building tools of Drupal, like the views, it's like a very powerful, basically query builder where you can build listings and everything, layout builders, forms, multilingual, it all just stays working. Yeah. And also, now with Drupal Canvas, we are also working to basically have support for decoupled Drupal Canvas. So we are working on it and want to have it ready also with the Drupal Canvas release. So it's also like integrated with Lupus decoupled and Nuxt. So maybe a little bit, a couple of words to how Drupal Canvas actually works, because that's also quite interesting. So like traditionally, the Drupal backend, that's just a regular server rendered backend. And like this special UI for the page builder, it was decided to implement it as a React application, so it can be more reactive and more instant. So it's a React application which was developed and that runs inside the Drupal admin UI. It uses Redux for like an easy undo redo functionality. And what's also quite interesting is actually that it came, like the developers, they came up with a very innovative way to render React inside the Drupal render pipeline. So it can render basically Drupal forms into React and go back and forth between Drupal rendering and React. It's quite crazy, but it works quite good for that special use case of having Drupal controlled forms rendered in React. So that's quite impressive what was built there actually. Also what's quite nice with Drupal Canvas, you can actually work on multiple pages at the same time and then like give them a review together and publish them together. And it also is able to do more than just pages. So in the end, you can, like with Drupal Canvas, really take over how the Drupal frontend works. You can basically start over all site regions, like the site header, footer, everything, and control it with Drupal Canvas and make it unconfigurable by the UI, if you want. So you have the choice. Yeah, another thing, of course, is AI. AI is everywhere. So Drupal has really powerful AI integration. There's like 290 plus AI modules. But the main one really is the AI/AI module, which is this central AI integration API. It basically provides the abstraction layer for all the other API integrations. So there's one API for basically abstracting all the different providers. And it also comes with a lot of extension modules for having all the central features, like, I don't know, chatbots, like the possibility to create buttons in the editing UI, to have RAG, to have like agents. Yeah, it's basically provides the base for other extensions than Drupal.net. So at the moment, there are like 22 supported provider modules, which you can just turn on and use. So like the idea is really when you use all those integrations, you can go with one provider, you're not stuck, you can switch it on later on. But also later on, like after a lot was already developed, there was even like a new AI initiative launched like this June to even progress further with the development of the AI stuff. So there's now dedicated funds and a dedicated team for specifically the AI development stuff. It's backed by multiple companies, as shown on the right. And it implements also like a clear documented AI strategy, which is basically based upon that foundation, like of having AI-human collaboration always, so not have the AI take over, do everything, but always have the collaboration. Also to have it be trustworthy, so there's lots of work involved into having like logging control of, so that's like all the trust and regulatory requirements are met. Then as mentioned, flexibility with the provider abstractions, open source, so you stay in control of your solution, and of course the community innovation. So some examples, actual basic examples of what's there, like what you probably would expect is, like, I don't know, there's things like suggestions, like you upload an image, you can generate the alt tag, you can generate summaries, suggest titles, things like that. There's also integration in the editor, so you can select some text and say, I don't know, change the tone of this text, things like that. And actually all those things that you can do select here. The nice thing is also you can configure these things and you can configure the prompt behind it. So you can really build it your way. There's also like an Drupal chatbot integrated, which is like in the admin interface. It can also do various things. Like you can basically use it as a way to provide help to the user. You can like build searches. You can connect it also with a vector database. You can do it to mass. You can basically use the AI to do mass updates to your content. And also what's nice is like when the AI is working, you can actually control of like what is allowed to do via the Drupal built-in role and permission system, which is very fine-grained. So you can very flexibly configure what it is allowed to do and what not. And also, of course, it integrates with all the configurable agents and tools. So that's also quite great framework actually to extend. There are also like modules for MCP, client and server module, which are of a more experimental, I would say. But it's also there to play with it. And yeah, that's been AI. Community events. So like the Drupal community, it's, as mentioned, a big global open source community. So there are like frequent Drupal camps basically happening all over the world. For most are like Europe and the States, also Asia more starting, but that's, I think, it's the most active areas. But there are really ones all over the world. There's also like in Europe a quite great, nice event, Drupal Developer Days, which we also had here like last time in Vienna 2023, which is more like basically of all the European Drupal community coming together. And there's also always 2+ official Drupal conferences a year, which is run by the Drupal Association. And this is also like a little bit more business oriented, but it's like business plus open source connected, what also makes it very interesting. And typically there's always one in Northern America, in the States, and one in Europe once a year. And then there's also some additional ones, like there's been DrupalCon India, Singapore, like a couple of Asian ones. And what's also very nice is next month, actually, there will be DrupalCon in Vienna. So it's gonna happen like 14 to 17 October. And it's happening at the Austria Center Vienna. It's a quite big event. It's about 1,000 attendees. There will be 4 keynotes, about 100 sessions. So it's going to be about Drupal, but there's not only Drupal stuff, there's also general web development stuff, and also, of course, there's going to be a lot of AI stuff. So if you're interested, that might be something to check it out. There will also be a great community party, I can tell you. And there's always contribution sprints. So it's also actually a really nice way to get involved into the community. And like if you're interested, the best way is to go there and to just ask questions. There's also like birds of feather sessions where you can really join the discussions of the developers and really learn how the things work under the hood. So if you wanna join, you'll need to get a ticket. They are unfortunately not very cheap. It's about €1,000, but you'll get, like with the sign-up code, I think €180 less. Yeah, as mentioned, keynotes. But also we have the local community. There's, as mentioned, the Drupal Austria Association. We also host regular meetups, mostly in Vienna, but maybe we'll do some meetups soon in Upper Austria as well. If you're interested, check out our meetup group, and we will actually announce all the meetups there. And as mentioned, there are also Drupal camps, which are also like a much more affordable option to get into the Drupal community if you like to try that. So generally, I've talked too much and haven't shown you anything. If you want to give it a try, the nicest way and easiest way, I would say, is to use something called DrupalForge.org, which is really nice to just launch demos very quickly. It will just launch you an online demo. There's like Drupal CMS, there's also like a Drupal AI CMS demo and many others. For testing it locally, I would suggest you to use DDEV. So if you just Google Drupal DDEV, you will find that documentation, which basically gives you the steps to get started. That's it. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
What are the benefits or pros and cons from your point of view for Drupal versus other CMS systems like WordPress, Joomla, Sitecore, Storybook, whatever that is used in the enterprise space?
Okay. So what are the pros and cons between Drupal and all of the other CMS systems? Oh, that's a hard question. I guess you could debate for many hours or longer. So I would say generally the power of Drupal comes with its flexibility. So that it's a great ecosystem of really open source modules and extensions, not only the core, but also the extensions. And also the extensions are very professionally and all open source. Like that's, for example, one difference like to WordPress, where you are quickly then into buying all the extensions and they are not working together, more competing. So Drupal, it's really an open source ecosystem where all the contributed modules on Drupal.org, they are all open source, and it's like also goes really with the open source thinking of working together, making them work together, and that's really common, normal thing for all those content modules to extend each other, to work together, to have plugins to integrate with each other, what makes it very powerful. So we can really build a lot of powerful things with Drupal without having to program a lot. So that said, the configuration, the configurability, the flexibility, I think makes it really great, like also in an enterprise framework where you need have proper like staging and configuration, version control. It has all of that. That's like basically where all the contributors come from. I think if you need something more easy and simple, if it's just like a very quick website that you want to have ready the next day, then it's probably too much. And I guess something like WordPress or like some other tool is quicker with that. Although like with Drupal CMS and Canvas, it's getting closer to that again, but I would say it's a little bit higher up the market. Compared to other things like more enterprise frameworks like Sitecore, the big advantage is it's open source. So when you build something of it, you own it, and you don't have to pay like a lot of license fees for being allowed to use it further, and still have to pay a lot of money for developing it. So it just really makes a ton of sense also for an organization. If you decide to use it, it's an investment that you build up, and then you it's yours and no one can take it from you. That said, that's maybe also one very nice thing, but also quite popular for is like what you can do with it is very easily is that you can roll your own distribution or like your own flavor. If you are an organization and you need to run many websites, not just one, you can very easily make one package and basically roll many websites out of that one package and make that very nice and like pre-configured and suiting as you need it in your organization. So that's definitely one of its strengths.
How does Drupal balance innovation versus stability? What to expect from this side?
How does Drupal balance innovation versus stability? That's a good question. It's also an old debate. So in the past, before Drupal 8, which is now like 10 years ago, there was like with every major version, basically you had to rebuild your site. So that was very much on the innovation side of things. And the community decided, okay, that's also not good because rebuilding the site all the time, like even every 3-5 years, it's maybe a lot to ask for. So now it works like that Drupal comes with new major versions every 2 years. And between of the majors, there are minors. So the minors, of course, are backwards compatible. With the majors, it's basically now that there is a documented upgrade path where there are some API changes. And also the modules are basically released with the API compatibility. So every 2 years, you have a major upgrade where you basically have to go through the upgrade. You have to make sure all the modules, all the things used basically have new versions which are compatible, and then it will work. And if you have developed your own modules, you will have basically followed the API deprecations. But it's still the same system, and you can just update. And you don't have to redo your site. So that's basically the approach that has been invented. And maybe important to add is the new features are actually not introduced into the majors, but they are introduced during minor versions. So like every half a year, there's a new minor version, you get new features. And basically what happens then with the major is just that the deprecated APIs are stripped away. So it's basically the regular API deprecation way.
Okay, thank you. Big round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, this concludes our official part. I hope you liked the talks. There's no food left, you ate it all, but there's still some drinks left. So please enjoy now the unofficial part, connect each other, talk to each other. Just one thing I want to ask you, look around you and take those empty bottles to the kitchen. Be some friendly guests to our friendly hosts at Cloudflight. Thanks again for Cloudflight for hosting this event. Yeah, so have fun and enjoy your drinks. Thank you.